just going to run down the whole list right here. So on here we can see in very small detail, but we also have those half heads that we can look at some of the first things. The nasal septum is not present on this model. You can see it on the stand-up models attached to the torso. The nasal septum is both bony and cartilaginous. It splits your nose holes. The nasal concha, you can see really well right here. These are basically turbines to create turbulence in the air that you're breathing in so that particulates can fall out and get stuck in your boogers. Those are supposed to just go out of your body, not under your nails and then into your stomach. Okay, so these are the concha. On this model, you can see all three of them. Really, I want you guys to pay attention to the inferior and the middle. The inferior one is the one that people pick and then their nose bleeds. Hard palate, soft palate, we're talking about the bottom portion of your nasal cavity. It's related to the bones of the skull that you guys learned way long ago. So the hard palate is bone. The soft palate is like if you stuck your finger back there, you can feel where it gets squishy. And it goes back to your uvula right here. The pharynx is a region. The pharynx is a region that you share between respiratory and digestive. So your nasopharynx is this region back here. It's the posterior portion of your nasal cavity. In the nasopharynx, you also have the opening of your eustachian tube. So your middle ear drains into your nasopharynx. And then that ear juice. Okay. The oropharynx is very small on this. It's at the very posterior portion of the oral cavity. The laryngopharynx is the place right here where your trachea and your esophagus deviate. And I'll try to be very specific when I ask you guys those regions on a test. Let's see. Hyoid bone, you can see right here. It's also much bigger on other models. I'm just doing it here. Thyroid cartilage is big on the front, small in the back. Whoa, so small you can't see it. The cricoid cartilage, very small in the front, big in the back. This little ligament right here, I'm just going to point it out, it's not on your list. That's where you're trying to hit if you ever have to tube somebody, the cricothyroid ligament. So it's in between those two cartilages. Epiglottis is that floppy bit. On this model, all cartilage is blue. Then we have something called a hilum. Have we talked about hilum before? Hilum is like a Pillsbury Doughboy effect. It's where stuff goes into or out of an organ and it creates a dimple. Like, woohoo! It's just a region. For lungs, it's important because during surgery, if you have to control some bleeding, you can clamp the hilum, or you can actually take the lung and twist it, because it's a very plastic organ. Right lung. Left lung. Ooh, got that one. The bronchial tree. We have a trachea right here. The first branches, primary bronchus. When you go down the primary bronchus, this is my right primary bronchus, the first time that it splits, I have now a secondary and a secondary. The splits off of my secondary are tertiary. And that's all that you guys have to know down to tertiary. And then we're going to skip to here. There's a whole bunch of branches. Now we're at the microscopic level, which is also represented here. So you have a terminal bronchial and a respiratory bronchial. I know it sounds like the terminal bronchial should be the one that feeds into the alveolus. It's not. The terminal bronchial is a large one here that still has a little bit of cartilage on it. That's your key. The respiratory bronchial are these little branches off of it that each of them feed into an alveolus. Oh, I told you wrong on this model. Sorry. These are the respiratory bronchioles. True enough, you can see this one leading into an alveolus. This right here, where you have little bits of smooth muscle on it, this one is your respiratory bronchial, and that's coming off of an upstream bronchial. Alveolus, if I turn this around, this is a magnified view of the alveolus, and oh my gosh, you can see immune cells in here. They're alveolar macrophages. They clean things up. They're like Molly maids in here, and then when they're done working, they get carried out by the mucus every time you're like, and then guess what happens to them? They die. You swallow them and they get burned up. That's everything on your list. Hope everyone had a good time.